Welcome to the Energy Summit. This is our session on modernizing push-to-talk by Keith Heggaton from Instant Connect.
Appreciate the tee up and I appreciate the opportunity, Roland. Thank you so much. Here's kind of from a high level what I was hoping to accomplish under collaboration, voice and video, and kind of how that plays into the industrial hybrid work use case, the solution components, use cases, architecture, and then Instant Connect's product manager, Wes Wells, is also on, potentially as an attendee at the moment. So if there are questions that are technical in nature that maybe are above my pay grade, we do have the product owner on the call as well. So it's complicated out there. There are a lot of disparate systems. So again, Roland, thank you for the tee up. And that's really kind of what Instant Connect does, is ties together all these disparate sources of data, media, and information. There's no limit to how we can communicate as workers within an organization today. And at times they can be disparate, cobbled together. It's hard to gain insight from those. So what Instant Connect does is it provides that common environment. And really we focus on voice, we focus on radio, we focus on tying that into the larger IP network. And essentially the benefit to Instant Connect is threefold. We convert the radio traffic, that voice traffic from your radio network, into IP so that it can communicate with smartphones, PCs, and tablets. We enable IP devices to have push-to-talk functionality, much like a radio. And then lastly, I would say it's kind of, it dovetails. There's this interoperability aspect where we get different radio makes and models to talk to one another. And we've taken it a step further and created an opportunity to modernize push-to-talk by creating a rules engine within Instant Connect Enterprise that can take third-party system inputs and create real-time, what we call smart talk groups, so that you're connecting the right people at the right time on the right device, really across the organization. So you'll see a nod from Gartner below, just kind of from the investment standpoint, kind of being on endpoints and devices. They've also named us a cool vendor in frontline worker technologies for that ability to create some dynamism, if you will, around the collaboration space. I won't read through all the bullet points on the slide here, but you can see some of the main challenges that we try to address with the solution. And partnering with Cisco really positions us for success, given that connectivity is really at the heart of what we need to accomplish the goals of really kind of moving from disparate networks into one network and ultimately having a unified collaboration experience. And that's really at the heart of what the industrial hybrid worker use case is all about from Instant Connect's perspective. Not unlike the slide that Roland shared just a moment ago, there's a lot at play here. And as you can see, the remote expert tie-in, the video and images, data, ERP systems, project management systems, building and maintenance systems. There's a myriad of inputs really across an enterprise that today may be fairly siloed and disparate, and it's hard to take action when it's needed. So really at the heart of this is voice and video. Again, how can we connect the right people at the right time to respond to an incident? Or how do we take people out of process and start to automate some day-to-day operational workflows that, even if you think about just for a second the dispatch idea, you've got a network operations center, command and control environment, you have a dispatcher, they've got multiple radios, different channels that they're communicating across. There's a lot of layers in that stack to just simply communicate your mission or task at hand. And Instant Connect has found a way to kind of automate some of those pieces so that, again, maybe an input from a system can create a talk group, and now we're doing it in real time. So we're pretty excited at the opportunity. And again, I won't read through all of these, but I think it kind of gives you an idea that Instant Connect really trying to create that one common environment across the organization to really increase productivity, decrease the need to carry multiple devices in the field, ease collaboration, increase visibility into field worker and productivity, potentially at remote sites, break down silos in geography. And again, this one common environment for communications is really accomplished by Cisco and InstaConnect being partnered together working on this industrial hybrid work use case. So this is some of the pillars that Cisco have really around how to enable hybrid work, how to keep collaboration at the forefront of what they do, and really how do we unlock capabilities and outcomes. You know, it's not just about features and technical designs. I mean, really, what is in it for the worker? What kind of impact and benefit can we provide an organization? And really, in the case of an incident, in the case of day-to-day operations, time matters. If you can connect knowledge workers to frontline workers quicker and more efficiently, not only is there productivity and efficiency gains, but worker safety we know is paramount in the industry. So if you can respond to an incident that much faster, you're keeping your most important asset top of mind, which is our workforce, our talent in the field. And I think that keeping them front and center and making sure that we can keep HSC top of mind is really critical to the solution as well. So that's kind of what we hang our hat on at InstaConnect. We connect the knowledge worker to the frontline worker. So wherever your office is, wherever you're located geographically, whether you're out in a processing plant, if you're geographically dispersed in the network operations center across the seas, if you are out in the actual field checking on sensors or other maintenance tasks, you're connected, whether you're on a radio or a smartphone, and we see a lot of value in that. So this is kind of, I've spoken to this already a little bit, and but ultimately what makes up InstaConnect is really, you know, push to talk is at the heart of it. You can see some of these devices listed on the side here, but really what we're doing is our vision is to create one network. Today, a radio network is running in parallel to the data or the IP network, depending on where you're at in your life cycle with your radios. You know, we're talking about a pretty expensive maintenance contract. We're talking about upgrades every 3 years or so, and that's again in parallel to your data network. So radio replacement's been talked about for a really long time, and we haven't seen it yet. And we think that there's good reason for that. You know, radios just flat out work, and I think driving behavior change within an organization can be difficult. But with connectivity advances, especially with what Cisco provides to the market today, here at InstaConnect, we're starting to see an opportunity where radio replacement probably won't happen overnight, but there is maybe some visibility. We can see some light at the end of the tunnel now where, you know, Wi-Fi 6E and private LTE networks being deployed. We're starting to see this ability to potentially, if not completely retire, augment and or extend an LMR system so that now we're not bound to buying new handsets when they break, when battery replacement's needed. We don't have to continue to purchase more spectrum on that. We could start to potentially take some of the investment that we've been putting into our radio system and start to deploy more smartphones and or tablets in the field. One of the biggest things we hear from field workers today is just, I've got to carry a tablet, sometimes a PC, a smartphone, and a radio, sometimes multiple radios. So that just becomes cumbersome when you're trying to accomplish a task. You've got upwards of 5 devices you have to manage. From an organizational standpoint, managing all those assets can be cumbersome. So we think that's probably the most prolific use case today is just the ability to consolidate networks, consolidate devices, start to move our workforce toward leveraging the mobile devices that they already carry. It starts to unlock the potential for voice and video. Yeah, Roland. I'm kind of rolling here, so I'm glad you cut me off.
Nah, I've got a couple of questions because you dumped a lot of stuff on us there in a minute. In a couple of minutes, you started talking about radio replacement, and replacement always kind of gives me these vibes that you're ripping one thing out of someone's hands and putting something else in there and saying, here, now you're using this. And basically the whole thing gets switched at once, right? But I don't think that's what you're talking about, right? You're talking about the reality is that you've got multiple things already happening within an environment typically anyway. And so it's not like you're flipping everybody from one thing to another thing. You're kind of gradually introducing new stuff into the environment and then moving everybody over as it makes sense without disrupting operation. Does that make sense?
Crystal clear. Yeah, that you succinctly wrapped it up. And Wes will keep me honest, and so will a lot of the folks on the call today. the investment that's been made in the radios today, really hard chance to get them just to flip a switch and turn that off and just go to a new mode of communication. In fact, I mean, you really nailed it, Roland. That's it. We provide additional utility to the LMR system, potentially extend its life, and really by bringing it onto the IP network, yeah, we're giving it this new, we breathe new life into it, so to speak. So yeah, it's not a rip and replace. We understand there's a huge investment most of the time made in these systems. So yeah, we extend and augment initially, and then I actually think I've got a slide that kind of, oh, this is the solution components, but it's a gradual step, and I think you articulated that really well. Some organizations never replace the radios, and we're not here to advocate for that. There's no really one size fits all approach, and I think that's what you drove at. So each organization is different. The way they approach digitization is different. There's still a lot of value in the radio systems. We just think we make it better. So yeah, high level, this is kind of the nuts and bolts of what makes up a solution. Just, you know, Instant Connect is a software platform, provides one interoperable environment for all forms of communication to occur, but there's a lot of Cisco components that make up the solution as well. There's some networking expertise when it comes to implementing and deploying the solution. It can be done on-prem, in the cloud, or a hybrid. So you can kind of see across the gamut here that there's a lot of solution components that make up the overall deliverable in the end. And at the heart of it, at the bottom, is really connectivity. I think that kind of speaks to it through and through. We do have a digital integration today with Kenwood. We integrate digitally to their NextEdge Gen 2 system. We can digitally integrate via DFSI as well. And we can also do donor attached for other systems. So hopefully this gives kind of a good picture into what makes up the solution set. And this is the slide I actually thought was coming next, so forgive me. There's steps to this. The very first step is making sure that we have connectivity in place to even allow for any kind of radio replacement conversations to take place. So connectivity is first and foremost, but that very first step that we see where Instant Connect adds the most value is what, Roland, what you pointed out, LMR augmentation or extending that radio utility. So a use case that we have is truck's got a radio, he's also got a mobile phone, let's say, and then once you're out of the RF footprint and you don't have radio coverage anymore, Instant Connect extends that coverage now to where geography isn't a constraint. Excuse me. So now our dispatch center that's on a radio can talk to really anyone outside of the RF footprint because Instant Connect's doing radio over IP now. So again, we're giving that LMR system some further utility that maybe it doesn't have today. And then as you see the steps, essentially this creates an opportunity for true digitization, and you can start to leverage the smartphones because, Roland, although radio replacement isn't at the heart of what we do, I would say it's very much LMR augmentation. There's no doubt that smartphones are ubiquitous across the workforce today. I don't think that anyone would disagree with that. So the ability to start to leverage that investment that organizations already have in smartphones and tablets, a solution like Instant Connect starts to really open up, opportunities to fully leverage that. Now you can start to do things like WebEx from the same device and a slew of other collaboration applications, as well as access to your ERP or your project management tools, et cetera. So, that's not something you can do with a radio. And I don't think anyone would argue that either. So there's some real benefit to the organization to introduce a product like Instant Connect, create additional utility for the LMR system, start to leverage that existing investment that you've made in your IP network. And then, it's kind of dealer's choice at that point. You can start to slowly move to less and less radios. Really, the choice is up to the organization. So I'll pause there because I feel like I didn't do a very good job of that first time, Roland. Did that lodge loose any other questions or points of emphasis, or should I keep moving into the use cases?
This is exactly right. This is the structure I think that people need. When you put the solution components together, kind of on the previous slide, there's a lot of stuff there, right? And so I think this really helps to kind of put some structure to it and say, hey, you don't need to know about everything on the solution component slide. It just means there's a lot of options, right? Depending on what you need as an organization. this is really, I think, where where the structure starts to happen, right? Is you nailed it in terms of connectivity, kind of is where it starts. If you don't have the connectivity, then this is not really a conversation, right? But we're seeing more and more connectivity out there into more and more places, right? I think I mean I've talked to operators in the last month that say, yeah, you know what? I don't think pervasive is a thing yet, right? Okay, well maybe it's not in your organization, and maybe there's places where you can't get connectivity, but you can still leverage it in all of the other places, right? And and there's a lot of workers that do have connectivity wherever they happen to be, but there is going to maybe be a subset that don't, and for those maybe you do need still RF radio, right? But it is definitely a journey, and I think this is a really good way to break it down.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. So 3 use cases, just to kind of frame this up, to make it a little bit maybe more closer to home. Maybe it's been too high level and conceptual, but really I think this was, you know, Roland, you help me speak to this throughout, but like leverage what you already have today. There isn't going to be an organization that typically just flips a switch and retires their radio network. At least in our experience, that's not how it works. So the better endpoints really, I think that makes sense as is, and that's at the heart of what we deliver from a value proposition. And then I briefly hinted at it in the beginning, but Gartner did nominate us as a cool vendor, and what they saw in the technology was the rules engine. So I haven't really talked much about this, but the pressure gauge goes off, something's out of spec. You know, you're doing a center line procedure in a plant, and just something's out of spec. I mean, there's a lot of layers that go into that communication back to a supervisor, or trying to maybe make a PSTN phone call, and you got to know who to call. Are they at their desk? Like, I don't know, we maybe just take it for granted that you pick up a phone and make a phone call, all the steps that are involved in that. So what Instant Connect's rules engine allows for is an organization has standard operating procedures today. If something's out of spec, you know, let's use our Active Directory or LDAP, and who's on shift. It can be based on department. It could be based on proximity. There's really just a whole slew of factors that kind of go into building out these automated workflows. But let's say I'm a worker, I'm in a facility, a gauge is off. Based on that trigger, it could be ingested by Instant Connect. It could create a talk group in real time across radios and smartphones or even, you know, PCs, pull in the right people based on role and proximity. And now just the people that need to be involved are connected. They're talking about the issue at hand. The context is ingested from the alert, so everyone knows what is being discussed. You're cutting out multiple steps in collaboration. You're doing it in real time, and then once it's resolved, now you have an auditable trail to show that, yeah, this thing occurred, we handled it, this is the resolution, and now you can go back and verify that it was actually handled correctly. So we're really excited at some of the ways we're modernizing push to talk, right? It's much more than just hitting the button and talking in real time. It's how do we pull in the right people at the right time across departments, across organizations, across geography to accomplish the task at hand. So, and then we've done some pretty cool integrations with some headsets, and we have a WebEx integration that we're really, you know, bullish on. And it's just there's really no limit to kind of what we can do with the tool from a third-party system standpoint. So that's how we feel we're really modernizing push to talk. And again,
Keith, this is Matthew.
I
just want to chime in real quick on that previous slide. You did in pointing out the, you know, creating of the talk groups, things of that nature, but the enterprise integration, especially with the WebEx piece, you touched on the whole compliance and being able to check things. But I think where that really comes into play too is the training and day to day. How did we react to that, right? How can we make our responses better the next time something like that happens, right? Because you can kind of replay it, right? Everybody can see exactly how everybody interacted, what was pulled into place, and what happened next, right? So, hey, how can we make that better next time? So I think that's a really interesting way to be able to leverage that tool.
Thank you, Matthew. Yeah, it's amazing. And then, in fact, it kind of speaks to, you know, I don't want to preach to the choir here, but I heard it called the silver tsunami. I don't know if that's offensive or not, so forgive me. but just the worker shortage, right? And I just think like that training is huge. If I can onboard a new hire faster, right, there's got to be value in that. So thank you.
As long as that's tsunami doesn't refer to my head here, and we're good. No, I'm sorry.
You forgot to turn your camera on here.
My camera's on.
Oh my gosh. Well, you're keeping me honest, and I think people that are eating lunch might have.
There we go.
There he is.
How about that?
Cool. Go ahead.
That was needed.
Go ahead, Keith.
No, that was needed because especially around the lunch time slot, that's a tough time to go because a lot of people are trying to eat maybe. So add a little comedic effect. That's really good. This one, I think, I've had it up for a bit, so maybe folks have had time to read through it, but really, I hope I've spoken to this a bit throughout, but really, safety is paramount for most organizations. How can we, respond to things in real time? We're trying to modernize push to talk to automate a lot of the steps that typically go into what we would think of as conventional push to talk. So really at the end of the day, safety is really kind of paramount. But then we've also heard Matthew great call out around training, audit, compliance. There's a lot of utility and benefit that can come from being able to have all these disparate systems in the one common environment. And I think that the titles kind of speak to what we can do. Operations are more efficient. You can accelerate projects, decrease downtime. I think that's what a lot of people are interested in. So we feel that the solution can do that in spades. And then lastly, turnaround optimization. Even if you're thinking about a field, your workforce increases, you may have contractors on site, you've got disparate communication devices, and how can we get everybody in the same environment, communicating, again, across radios, across smartphones, and Instant Connect can really play a vital role in that. Not to mention we've got some other feature sets like GPS and location tracking. So, now I've got this vast geographic terrain that I've got to cover. Now I know where people are at in real time. I can see, status and presence. I can communicate across radios and smartphones, really kind of breaking down silos and creating these efficiencies that aren't had, previously. So we think that, again, all these headers, these really kind of speak to what we feel like we can improve within day-to-day operations within an organization. And that's how we start to quantify or justify the investment in a solution like Instant Connect. If we can decrease response times, if we can decrease the amount of safety incidents we have on site, if we can streamline IT asset management by consolidating devices, if we can potentially start to take some of the money that we were putting into our LMR system for maintenance and upgrades, if we can start to slowly reallocate that toward other areas of the business, that's where we start to see, cost justification for Instant Connect. And when we do that in concert with Cisco, it's not so much just a software solution in and of itself. It's a more end-to-end holistic approach to the organization. We showed that slide that kind of shows the steps in the journey. Really can start to help organizations digitize on their own terms in a way that makes sense. And that's why we're so excited at the partnership with Cisco and the chance to speak to you all today. Is Instant Connect solves a real challenge in the business that folks may not know they even have, right? Just been doing push to talk the way they've been doing it for decades, and there's potentially a more efficient way to do that today. And we like to think that we'd be a good solution for that. So we're coming up on the end. It's going to start to be some architecture slides just to kind of give folks a high-level understanding of how all the bits and pieces work together. I've got this one that's specific to Instant Connect, and then there's another one that'll speak to more of a broader portfolio that includes more Cisco components. But again, it all relies on connectivity in the enterprise network at the end of the day. And then we've got multiple endpoints that you can use, PC. We even enable Cisco desk phones to do push to talk, which is pretty cool. So, I know that Cisco has, 100 million plus of those deployed today globally. So if you've got, a Cisco phone at your desk, you can do push to talk on that across radio and IP devices as well. So this is that last one, just kind of trying to tie it all together to give folks more of a visual representation of what all the solution components are.
Thank you for joining us for this session. If this session was of value to you, please like and subscribe and click on the next video. Take care.